Tony Waterman in Paris and Mohammed Abubakar in Nairobi join us for more. Greetings to both of you. Tony, let's start with you in Paris. The closing ceremony is about to get underway in Paris. Has this Olympics delivered on what was expected in terms of organization, athletes' performances, and security, Tony?
Yeah, I would think that many people would say that it actually over-delivered on a lot of these fronts, starting with the opening ceremony, the first of its kind, not inside a stadium, but out in the open, in the public, on the River Seine, and right through the games themselves. One of the big things that was so enjoyable for so many spectators here were the venues themselves, that they were able to enjoy the Olympics, soak in that excitement from some of France's most iconic landmarks. You had beach volleyball at the foot of the Eiffel Tower, equestrian in the gardens at Versailles, and of course in the Grand Palais right here behind me you had the taekwondo and the fencing, and you could hear the roar of the crowd all day long. There were 42 records that were broken during these Olympics, 10 world records, 32 Olympic records. So these athletes were performing the best that they have ever done. There was also a record number of tickets that were sold. Don't forget, in Tokyo 3 years ago, there was no spectators that were even allowed. So really making up for it, the revenge Olympics, if you will. And there were at least 7 marriage proposals in the City of Love. I mean, it was just a phenomenal event. And when you look at the security apparatus here, I mean, this was the largest peacetime mobilization of law enforcement and security forces in French history. And by and large, it has been an extremely safe event. We had a couple of instances starting on the day of the opening ceremony when we had that arson attack on France's high-speed rail network. And then today we also had another small blip when somebody tried to climb up the Eiffel Tower from the outside. They had to evacuate the premises. But overall, this has been an extraordinarily successful, safe event. Of course, we have the closing ceremony, which you said is just going to be starting in just a couple of hours from now. But overall, just really over-delivering on so many fronts.
Tony, thank you so much for all that. We'll be back with you in a moment. Mohammed, let's come to you right here in Nairobi. How did athletes, Mohammed, from Africa perform at Paris 2024 compared to previous Olympics, and also considering, Mohammed, some of the expectations on them?
Well, Hannah, in comparison to previous Olympics, I'd have to say the numbers are very pleasing. The fact that Africa has managed to meet a total of 38 medals, but it's how it's spread. 11 countries have managed to have an athlete medal at this year's Olympic compared to previous ones where we've had around 6-7 nations winning the medals. More interestingly, the number of gold medalists, Olympic champions from, let's say, go back as far as London 2012, Rio, Tokyo, we've had 9 gold medalists, 10, 11 in Tokyo, and now we've had 12. So it's a small number, but it's a gradual growth. So that would make a lot of Africans very happy, knowing that they've managed to get more African champions. But what's more interesting, again, is how these gold medals have been spread in terms of disciplines. Africa is known to get the bulk of its medals in the track events, but this time round we've had 5 of the 12 gold medals. This is nearly half in events that are non-track, non-athletics. We have had a lot of fasts. For instance, in Algeria, boxer Iman Khalif becoming the first African woman boxer to win a gold medal in boxing. We've had Kylie Nemore winning Africa's first gold medal in gymnastics. And also Botswana's Lesile Tebogo upsetting the Americans, pre-final favorites in the men's 200 sprints, again winning the 200-meter final and getting that gold medal, first gold medal for Botswana, and the first sprint gold medal for Africa in the 200 meters. So I would say, all in all, it's been pleasing for Africa.
Mohammed, thank you so much for all that. You and I had a discussion before the show in the newsroom, and you had so many fascinating things to tell me, so I'll be picking your brain a little bit more in a moment. But Tony, let's come back to you in Paris. No doubt Paris 2024 games have been spectacular, Tony, and you've mentioned this too. But in general terms, what have been some of the major challenges? And going forward, how prepared is the United States for LA 28?
I mean, there's always the big challenge in any Olympics of actually paying for it, affording it. It's a very expensive thing to host, and France, like many other host countries, was way over its budget. There were challenges with so many of the swimming events taking place in the River Seine, which is this notoriously polluted waterway. Many of the events, the training, the men's triathlon, it was all delayed because the pollution levels were too high. Then we got these reports that some of these athletes were coming down with viruses, were very sick after spending time in the water. So those were some of the challenges here in Paris, but you're right. Next up is going to be Los Angeles, which has some similar challenges that they have here in France. So for example, Paris organizers received a lot of flack for pushing asylum seekers who are homeless outside of the city to make way for all of the tourists. And Los Angeles is going to have a similar problem on their hands. The city has one of the highest unhoused populations in all of the United States, somewhere around 75,000 people experiencing homelessness. They're going to have to find a place for these individuals. Also, security is going to be an issue. LA has an above average crime rate in the United States, so they're going to have to make sure that these games are secure. The mayor of Los Angeles saying that they're already working with the police there and law enforcement to start preparing the city for 4 years from now. Another thing that could be quite challenging for LA is that they want to have a no-car games. And in LA, if anybody's ever been there, they know the traffic is just absolutely horrific. So they're trying to make it a car-free event, but they don't have the money to actually pay for any new rail lines. So they're going to end up relying mostly on a bus system, which often gets stuck in traffic. So that's going to be a big challenge for them. But ultimately, I mean, LA is Hollywood. It's got this major glamour of Hollywood stars, of Hollywood iconic landmarks, and they're going to really play into that. So like any Olympic Games, there's going to be challenges, but they're going to be able to make it unique to LA, which is going to be hosting the Olympics, the Summer Olympics, for the 3rd time.
Mohammed, let's come back to you. Africa seems to be losing its edge, Mohammed, in athletics, while other continents seem to be catching up. What do you expect for Africa at LA 28, and how do you foresee them preparing for that?
Well, the African in me, Hannah, is reluctant to say that Africa is losing their edge, but it is certainly alarming, the fact that we have 2 events in the track, or rather athletics, where we failed to defend the title in the women's marathon and the men's 5,000 meters. But what is interesting is that I've noticed African athletes have been widening their hunting ground in the medals, especially in the track events. We've seen the rise of sprinters, especially in the Southern African nations. We know Tebogo managed to win a gold in the men's 200 meters, but very interesting fact is that we had 4 Africans in that men's 200-meter final, which is huge for Africa to know that sprinters can get as far as the final in such events that are being dominated by Americans, Jamaicans. And the men's 400 meters as well, where we had a Zambian winning bronze medal. So the fact that we've seen athletes trying to widen their medal hunt is promising, but it is alarming seeing the long distance events, the middle distance events, where we've been losing to non-African athletes, I would say, because these are events that Africans are known to dominate. So speaking of LA 2028, preparations need to begin as early as tomorrow. There's a tendency with national Olympic committees to wait until the final years or the final 2 years to start finding out which athletes have qualified for the Olympics, and then we end up having teams and athletes trying to chase qualification times up until the final day of the deadline, and having very little time to prepare for the Olympic Games. Also incorporating technology and science in preparations as well. It's very key. African athletes need to start using this. We have a few that always use, and we've seen the results. But the more it is accepted and used, I believe athletes will be better prepared. And we've also seen in the team sports this year that it is a place where we can actually get medals as well. We had the men's football teams, Egypt and Morocco, playing in the bronze medal match. We had South Africa Blitzboks, the rugby sevens men's team, winning a bronze medal. So we should also try and broaden our competition in terms of, you know, the sporting disciplines. We've seen basketball make history in Africa. The South Sudanese team winning a match in their first ever Olympic appearance, which was very, very, very promising to know what is coming ahead for a sport like basketball in the country. So early preparation, Hannah, is key to any successful Olympic outing.
Mohammed, thank you so much for that. Tony, thank you so much. Tony Waterman was joining us from Paris, and Mohammed Abubakar was joining us from right here in Nairobi.